Our politicians are clueless on what people want from Brexit. Between Christmas and the New Year, when people weren't focusing on the news, the government quietly announced that it wouldn't be legislating to expand the use of imperial units in domestic consumer transactions. What a waste of time this whole thing was. During the 2019 election campaign, Boris proudly announced that he would reintroduce imperial measures. He called them an ancient tradition, and he declared a new era of generosity and tolerance towards traditional measures. Slightly odd choice of words here, I think, tolerance. So in 2021, the government launched a plan to capitalise on new Brexit freedoms. Included in this plan, under the heading Reducing Bureaucratic Interference, was new legislation on markings and sales in imperial units. However, rather than just rushing ahead and doing this, which is how a lot of the Brexit legislation has been adopted, the government initiated a consultation. This was actually a good decision, so I'll at least give them some credit for that. The results were really interesting. 81% are happy with the status quo, keeping metric as the primary unit of measurements. Less than 1%, 0.9%, were open to the increased use of imperial measures. Only 17.6% wanted to go purely metric, a lot more than want purely imperial, but still relatively low. People really do like the status quo according to this data. And a tiny 0.4% wanted to move to a completely imperial system. So the message is clear. People have no interest in any expansion of use of imperial measures. It really doesn't make any sense. So the government conceded that they won't be making any changes to the law. However, let's just take a look at the first paragraph of the government's announcement of the consultation results. Despite the clear and unambiguous indifference to imperial measures, they start by saying that the UK has a long and proud history of using imperial measures, that they are closely associated with our culture and language. What planet are these people on? It's like an obsession, harping back to the good old days. But it gets worse. They have actually decided to expand the use of imperial measures. In the same document, they set out next steps. This includes legislating to allow sparkling wine to be sold in a pint size. Have you ever heard anyone in your life say that they wish they could buy champagne by the pint? I would think that this actually devalues the luxury experience of drinking champagne. Absolutely bizarre. As I was thinking about this issue, I paused to think about the term imperial measures. Of course, imperial implies related to the empire. This is part of the reason why Boris referred to ancient tradition, I think. Part of the Brexit campaign was almost to make Britain great again. And anything that harks back to the British Empire scores highly with people who are nostalgic about the UK's past. Whatever economic gains may have come out of the British Empire, some of the exploitation, abuse, pillaging and human rights violations that came with it are disgraceful. Any reference to the empire in any form is totally unacceptable in my book. I was curious whether imperial had been capitalised, as I kept feeling the grammatical urge to capitalise it as I was writing out my ideas for this video. I found this old extract from a Hansard recording of a Parliament debate on metrication. At least in 1970, in official government literature, the term imperial was capitalised, giving an explicit link to the empire. Somewhere along the way in the past 50 years, the capital letter has been dropped, implicitly acknowledging this link to the empire. I'm sure Liz Truss would call me woke, but I strongly oppose any reference whatsoever to the British Empire. Interesting that Boris talked about being tolerant towards the use of imperial measures. I had the thought that it's not like there's a campaign against imperial measures. But I checked this, and it turns out that there is a campaign for the UK to complete the changeover to the international metric system. They talk about the two systems muddle, and when you pause to think about the current system, It is a muddle. We're all used to it, but it doesn't really make sense to have these two parallel systems. We have to keep metric because the vast majority of the rest of the world uses it. So I'm actually quite sympathetic to the arguments of the UK Metric Association. However, the key point here is just how out of touch our politicians are with what the public wants. Even when no interest whatsoever is shown in expansion of imperial measures, they still do it so that we can drink champagne by the pint. The truth is that this is populism at its worst. There is an element of the Tory vote that will react positively to these efforts, and that's what it's all about. Not governing on the basis of solid economic ideas, which surely would suggest a complete move to metrication, but on the basis of what might win a few more votes. Cynical and really disappointing. As I always say, we deserve much better from our politicians. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.